Nassau BOCES, we thank the Nassau BOCES Board of Education for supporting this initiative. My name is Hope Rencher. I am the assistant principal of the Nassau BOCES Center for Community Adjustment. Thank you for joining us. The purpose of these webinars is to provide information that is important for families when students are preparing to leave school and enter adulthood. This webinar will run about 1 hour. If you have a question during the presentation, we invite you to type your question into the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be addressed following the presentation as time allows. If your question is of a personal nature, feel free to leave your contact information, and tonight's presenter will contact you individually. Tonight's webinar is on the topic of college planning, services for students with disabilities. With the consent of our speakers, this event will be recorded and posted on the Nassau BOCES website. Our speakers tonight are Gina Esposito-Sales and Catherine Lewis, both of whom are counselors at the Center for Students with Disabilities at Nassau Community College. Tonight, our speakers will review how students entering college may access accommodations there and will highlight issues that may affect the decision to do so, as well as other aspects of college life. So with that, it is a pleasure that I introduce you to Ms. Esposito-Sales and Ms. Lewis. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Just giving Kathy a moment to put on a PowerPoint that was created for tonight's event.
You should be able to see it on your end, right?
Thank you. Good evening. So as Hope shared, I'm a counselor from Nassau Community College, and my colleague Kathy Lewis joins me tonight to talk about the transition and some important tips to helping your child transition to college. Kathy and I are two of the 5 full-time counselors at Nassau Community College in the Center for Students with Disabilities. We also have a handful of part-time counselors. We have TAs that work in our testing lab and a handful of TAs that work in our tutoring lab. There's our contact information if you have, as we said, some specific questions about Nassau Community College or the transition from high school to college. Next slide. Okay, so some key factors to understanding the difference between high school and college. The biggest thing that we will say, as you see first listed there, is the name of the disability office. So in the K through 12 schools, it's very easy to find help and support for a child who has an intellectual or mental health or physical disability. You reach out to the special education department and special education team. At the college level, every disability office calls themselves something different. At Nassau Community College, we call ourselves the Center for Students with Disabilities. Other schools may call it Access, learning supports, a variety of different terms. So when you're helping your child understand finding these resources, just be patient that the resources may be called something that they're not familiar with. Under the college and higher ed umbrella of services, we do follow the ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, where the K through 12 schools follow the IDA, the Individuals with Education Act. Under the IDA, students are provided with an individualized education plan, a IEP, or a 504 plan, which clearly outlines the student's disability, their needs, their supports, and it's revised every year throughout their journey in the school system. When they transition to college, that document is no longer valid, no longer updated. It's a document that ends with the K through 12 school system. At Nassau, we do use it as a baseline to help better understand students' needs and their disability. But it's a document that the students, as you're helping them transition, should become familiar with what it is, what it says about them, how it reflects them as a student, them as a learner, them as an individual, since it is one of the first pieces of paper that our office would see, and to help organize and better plan the supports and services that the student may need when they enter our office. In the high school setting, there's no cost. Your tax dollars and school funding pay for these types of services. At the college level, depending upon the school of choice, there may be different fees for the services that a disability office would require. At Nassau Community College, the supports that I mentioned as far as an individual counselor to work with to discuss accommodations and supports, resources, the tutoring lab, and our CSD testing lab, which is similar to a resource room or learning center where students take exams in the K through 12. Those are all part of a student's tuition. So it's not any additional cost for students to use those services at the college level. We'll talk a little bit more as we move on about the differences between modifications to one's curriculum or test or things like that in the K through 12 school system compared to accommodations that a student may get at the college level. So although the IEP or 504 may clearly outline things that the student is getting, the support that they are getting, that doesn't always smoothly transition to the college setting because the supports may look different to the student, or what is available may look different. A big thing between the difference between high school and college is that the most important advocate at the college level is the student themselves. We do look at the student as a young adult, as an individual, and that's the person that we are directing our communication, our support, and our guidance to. Different from the high school level and younger grades, obviously, the parent is the primary advocate. So as you begin the transition, we can't stress enough that the student learns to begin advocating for themselves, going back to understanding what the IEP says about them so that they can explain to others what their disability might look like to them and what help they might need. There have been times over the years when I have a student in front of me and I say, please explain your disability. And the student says, my disability is extra time. That's not your disability. Your disability is much more than the extra time that you may get to help you through an exam. And lastly, as we point out here on the slide, the student code of conduct, we do go over that at length with students that come through our office, that the behavior issues that may be presented from one's disability, we always go back to the student code of conduct, that no matter what behavior you may be having, what may be bothering you for the day, what may be disrupting you in class, we are a college campus, and we do want students to always be respected and treated kindly. So we do discuss that disruptive behavior is not acceptable. Next slide, please.
Do you want me to do FERPA?
Sure, I know you love it.
I love FERPA. So on the college level, the students are now in charge, and that's with any higher education. So the student's in charge. Now the mail, when it comes home, no longer says to the parent or guardian of. It now has the student's name on it. But as the parent or guardian, if you want to have access to the student's education records, the student has to grant you permission. And by doing that, the student has to fill out a form called the FERPA form. And that's usually housed in the registrar's office in all higher education. The FERPA form, the student puts on it who is a third party and what access they can have within the education records. If it's their transcript, if it's their grades, their academic progress report, the student has to actually say what access the third party can have. Now, the student can give access. The student can also take away access. Because again, the student is in charge. And all of this is usually housed in the registrar's office for the different higher eds. Teachers, professors are not education records. So keep in mind, if the student does sign the FERPA granting you access to their education records, that does not mean that you're still allowed to call the professor, say, hi, Professor Sales, my daughter's in your class, how are they doing? They can't tell you. So that's FERPA.
Thank you. Okay, so an overview of our office. So from the moment that a student registers, excuse me, I'm sorry, actually applies to the college, we welcome them to begin the process of identifying themselves with our office. So any student, whether the student's taking a class or a full load of classes, a full-time student, whether they're seeking a degree or they're as a non-matriculated student taking a class for a prerequisite elsewhere or for personal enrichment. If you are a student that had received accommodations in the past or are presenting something new, mental health, we have a lot of students who are now presenting mental health requests for support because of mental health. We encourage them to reach out to our office. So we support students in seeking reasonable accommodations that are determined based on review of a student's application and documentation. The documentation that I spoke of before, the 504 plan or the IEP from high school, psychological evaluation, that's all very helpful. If the student's disability is something more medical, or is it something recent, a recent diagnosis, recent mental health issue, then some other documentation from other sources may be requested. We support students in utilizing approved accommodations, which could include academic, classroom, or housing accommodations. So in Nassau Community College, we do not have housing and dormitories, but other schools may offer the accommodations for a dormitory depending upon a student's needs. Maybe it's a single unit or an air conditioner, or that they have a food allergy or something, that they can't live with someone who the gluten allergy or something. They need to have a bathroom on the within their suite, something like that. So depending upon the student's needs, accommodations are always considered based on what can help and support them. Reasonable accommodations level the playing field for students with disabilities. So for example, sign language interpreters, Braille, extended time on exams, testing in a distraction reduced environment, enlarged screens, wheelchair accessible desk, note-taking technology, etc. Again, the accommodations that you might see on the IEP or 504 or that you're familiar with your student having in the high school now do not always smoothly transition to a college setting. So one of the things that we do that's very different from a high school is that we do not have human readers, a one-on-one reader for a lot of the exams. We do not have the manpower to do that. We do not have the space to do that. So instead, we have technology that will read exams to students, that will read textbooks to students, that will read online classes to students, that will read notes to students. And when students sometimes hear that they're not going to have a one-on-one reader, they don't always like that, but over time they find that it's actually quite beneficial, that they could have it read multiple times. They can speed up the reader, they can slow down the reader, they can skip questions if they need, and they have it wherever they go, or usually whatever modality of exam they may have, an online exam or a face-to-face class exam. So we do help students understand that the differences between accommodations now and the accommodations when you're in the college setting. At the college level, it is the responsibility of the student to self-disclose. So when I started the conversation about identifying themselves right after applying to the college, what we say is that you need to self-disclose to our office that you are a student who has a disability and would like help and support from our office. It is up to them to self-disclose, to register with our office, meaning that they give us documentation, and then we would assign them to a counselor, and the student and counselor begin a conversation of what accommodations are necessary for the classroom. And that goes across the board with other colleges as well. Our other colleagues at Farmingdale and Adelphi and Hofstra all share the same message. We'll talk in a little bit more about the next steps, that once the student is on campus, how do they self-disclose to their professors that they have the help and support from the office.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. So picking the right school for you. So when you're doing your college visits, it's also important to take time to visit the disabilities office, meet the staff, see how big it is, how much support do you need, and can that college provide you with that support? So for example, NCC, we have 9 disability counselors, which is huge. I've been to other colleges where it's 1 or 2 counselors available, and sometimes they don't have night hours. I'm actually there at night on Tuesday nights. So you want to see what college has the support you need. How big is the office? Is it close to you? Do they have the support service, the technology? So it's so important right now while you're still in high school, go through your IEP as a student. See what do you need? What resources do you use? Do you go for math tutoring? Do you go for reading tutoring, English tutoring? Does that school have those support services for you? And you can actually go visit the tutoring centers too. You can go take a peek at it and really take some time and see if it's a right fit for you. When you visit the disabilities office, you want to know what type of documentation you need, the most updated. In a previous slide, it said declassified documentation may not be sufficient in some colleges. So in that case, it's your responsibility as a student, if the school does not accept it, that you have to get updated documentation. So that means you have to go to your doctor or whoever you see to get new documents that say that you do still have a disability. You need to find out, is tutoring available and is there an extra cost? Gina already said that a few schools do charge for their tutoring. Nassau does not. Or tutoring is part of your um, tuition. Sorry, I've been up since 4 a.m. It's part of your tuition, but you want to see what type of tutoring is there and what do you need. If you're strong at math, you want to make sure the school has math tutors available for you. What waivers or substitution is granted to students because of their disability if you can't pass a course. So this is part of the modifications, if it's a reasonable modification. So for example, if you're a student with a physical impairment, but you have to take a phys ed class and the only thing that's open is basketball and you can't take it, what is the procedure from the school and how do you get a waiver for that class? Or what substitution can you do instead? You also want to know, is there any support groups on campus? Where can you go to find a home or a community? NCC, we have over 90 clubs, and a few of them are just for students with disabilities or advocates. So one of them is the Access Club. The other one is the Achilles Club. So where can you find a community for you? What type of technology is in the school? What software is used for accommodations? So for our exams, we don't do a human reader, as Gina said. We use a program called Read Write Goal. We also used to use Kurzweil. We also had Dragon Speak Naturally. So what software does the disabilities office have? And then how do you know how to use it? Is there someone there available, a technology specialist that'll sit down and speak with you and teach you? Or maybe they have other technology that's beneficial for your disability. Like I know everyone here loves to take notes in class, right? I know. I am probably the only one that's like, yes, I love notes. But what technology can you use to help you when you're doing a lecture like history and it's not your strong suit? Is there counseling available in the office or throughout the campus? Where else can you go for support service? So all of these you have to look at to see, is that school right for you? Accessibility also, you want to make sure you're able to go from campus to campus or building to building. Nassau, we have one campus, but we have 225 acres. Suffolk Community College is split between 2 different campuses. So you want to check out, if you're on different campuses, is there support service on each campus? Is it easy to get to? How do you get there with transportation? It's a lot different than in high school. We don't provide a bus for you to get to school. It's your responsibility as a student to get to the campus and even to navigate around the campus.
Okay, so some other things to consider when picking a college. So as we said, of course, understanding the supports that are available, but also if you think back, if you too were a college student, a college graduate, what were some of the things that you looked for when you were stepping foot on the campus exploring? Today, of course, the affordability, the cost of college is huge. I hope that you've attended some other workshops about FAFSA form and funding that's available. The Excelsior Scholarship, of course, academic majors, what is available. So many students today don't know what they wish to major in. So what options would they have after they are on campus for a little bit and then need to pick a major? Is it still the right school for them? Campus safety. We actually have a big campus safety presence. Our public safety officers navigate the campus all day long. They have a big presence in our new student orientation program. So campus safety is very important these days. Campus life. So Kathy and I can speak about the community college being a college where you go to class and then you go home. So what type of presence is there of the student body when the classes are, or in between class, go to class from class, what type of activities are happening, where do students go? Those are things to help your students to look at as well. Are you interested in joining a club? If not, are you going to be utilizing the library or the athletic building? For students that are commuting to school and you have a break in your schedule, where can they go and hang out? Food service and sitting in the cafeteria only goes so far. What other stuff can you be doing on campus? Something that I always support students looking into. So if you do have federal work, if you do have financial aid, often in your financial aid package, students will be eligible for federal work study. That's how we hire all of our student aides on campus. So a great way to spend your break or a day that you have less classes is to have a campus job. Our students that work in our offices in Center for Students with Disabilities or the Career Counseling Office or the student activities get a much richer involvement and experience on campus because they learn firsthand how the college operates, what other students need, how to help other students. So having the opportunity to be a student aide on campus is a wonderful, wonderful experience. Other offices that we have within all campuses have that are available to students would be the Career Counseling Office and a job placement office. We also have a transfer counseling office. So students that come to Nassau look to take a couple of classes or look to take a whole liberal arts degree and transfer on. We say from day one, you should be communicating with our transfer office so that you can be picking the correct classes to transfer on to your next step and not get lost along the way of taking classes that you didn't need. So it's important that you meet with the transfer counseling as well. And then I will talk for a minute about the difference between traditional or online classes. So NASA has learned fast through COVID the importance of being ready for online learning and the students' enjoyment in online learning. So we do offer still to this day a large variety of classes over online, asynchronous online learning. So we have a learning management system called Brightspace that students and faculty use to complete their online classes. So the class, if it's an asynchronous online class, all of the work that a student would be doing is on Brightspace. We have traditional face-to-face classes, and then we also have synchronous classes and hybrid classes. Synchronous is where a student would have a lecture with a professor over Zoom, like we're doing this evening, where it's a bit more interactive, or we have hybrid where the class might be meeting in person one day of the week and then virtually in some capacity another day of the week. As students get to pick classes and class times and build their own schedule and explore these different options of online or face-to-face classes, I think Kathy can join me in saying that we try to speak to our students who utilize the Center for Students with Disabilities that it takes a very disciplined student to be an online learner. Students that have who go into it thinking that it's going to be easier because you don't need to be on campus and in a classroom. It's not always that way. Do they work for some people? Yes. Social anxiety, or if you have transportation is an issue, it could certainly work. But I know Kathy and I do try to speak to students about that difference and being the correct student for the modality of class that is available to them. Okay.
And not every class is offered remote. So that's another thing. Like if you're expecting to take a biology class, most people don't have a dissection laboratory in their kitchen where, so you have to come on campus. So that's definitely something to think about if you're planning on doing your full degree online at whatever school. Just keep in mind when you do like those hard sciences, the school might require you to come in for those pieces.
Mhm.
All right, so registering with the disabilities office. So it's not like high school where the special education teacher has your IEP because they wrote it up. They know you for 4 years. In college, it's your decision if you want to use the disabilities office. You have to first apply to the college. Whatever you do at any college you go to, do not send your IEP with your application to the college. They're two separate things. Send in your application, apply to the college. You'll get something saying, congratulations, you've been accepted. Here's your student ID number. These are the next steps. Once you get that, then you need to contact the disabilities office by sending them your documentation on your disability and generally a request form saying what accommodations you're requesting. There might be some things on your IEP or your 504 that you found you really don't need, like a reader. You want the extra time, but you don't want the reader. So you have to let the disabilities office know what accommodations you're seeking. From there, the disabilities office collects your documentation from you. They review everything, and then they'll contact you saying if you've been assigned a particular counselor and what is the next steps. It's your decision as a student if you want to sit down and meet with your counselor and get your accommodation set up. When you sit down and meet with your counselor, it's generally the disabilities office and the student. If the student wants to grant permission for someone else to be in the room, like a parent, the student has to give permission every time. So mom and dad can't just walk in, say, hi, I want to speak to you about my son without him knowing. We can't speak to you. The student has to be present and available. When you meet with your disability counselor, it's so important to know what is your disability. Is it a learning disability? Is it autism? Is it a hearing disability, a visual disability? And how does that affect your learning? If you have a hearing disability in one ear and you've learned that you need closed captioning, how does that affect you? So that way the disability counselor can actually set up reasonable accommodations for you. Know your academic strengths. Know where you have a difficulty, a weakness. If you know math is not your friend, you want to make sure that school has math tutors. Or what type of math do I have to take? Where can I go for help? Does the professor have office hours? What accommodations do you need? What ones do you want? Which is a big difference. What will be there for you for support? What kind of support services did you have in high school? What was actually helpful? We find a lot of the times a student gets a reader in high school. When they're at the college level, they'll have the reader for the first semester. And then they say to us, no, I really don't use it. I don't need it. That's fine. We go by what the student says, and it's the student's choice if they want to use those accommodations. And accommodations can change from semester to semester depending on what's going on with the student, their disability. If they're taking a lot of lecture classes, they might find, you know what, no, I really need that reader back. And then they can add that onto their accommodation. How do you manage your time? So most of the time, the students can have extra time on exams, but when it comes to extra time on assignments, is that a disability or is it a time management issue? So that's a conversation that the student has with the counselor. Also, know what time is good for you. I know I am not a good morning person, not at all. And Gina's probably laughing because I'm usually like not a morning person. I'm a night owl.
Mhm.
Um, Don't schedule a test or schedule an exam or a class at 8 a.m. if you know you like to sleep until 7:45. You had to show up on time for class. So know yourself and speak to the disability office about that. Be like, I'm really not a morning person. I have 6 a.m. classes. Can you help me? I like to say we're really good at our jobs, but what we're not good at is reading your minds and predicting the future. So that conversation really helps us learn about you and let you know what classes are available and what would be a good fit for you with your schedule.
Okay. So we talked a little bit before about the testing accommodations, or what do we mean by when we say accommodations? So to go back to, again, stressing that students should take a look at their IEP, their 504, see what they have been eligible in the past for and utilizing in the past, and what that might look like at the college level. So the very first form of accommodations a student may get from Nassau Community College is for a placement test. If the student is requires a placement test, the admissions office will let them know if they need the reading, English, or math placement test to determine college level placement. And that would be the first exam that a student could get some accommodations for, either extra time or have the test read. As I said before, Nassau does not have any housing, so the housing accommodations would be more specific to other schools. We do have classroom accommodations, so any student that may have needs in the classroom setting, we support them. This past week, classes started last Thursday, the 22nd. Students have been reaching out after going to different classes, realizing, okay, the class is on a second floor and I can't do the stairs. I need a classroom that's on the first floor. Where's the closest elevator? Where's an ADA desk so I could sit at a desk with a separate chair? That's not always available in every classroom, depending upon the type of classroom it is. If it's a lab class or an older building, these different everyday accessibilities are not always available. So we need to make sure that those are in place before a student gets to class. Students, sign language interpreters, those are individuals who we would hire for students that are in need of that. Students, do want to touch on students that have had before a one-on-one aide in the classroom environment in the K through 12 system. When they transfer over to the college, that's not something that the college provides for the student. If a student would be in need of a personal care attendant, someone who's going to care to their needs throughout the day, they're in a wheelchair, multiple reasons. I won't get too specific, but I just want to make it clear that those are not individuals that are hired by the college for that student. That is somebody that the college would meet with and approve that they could be on campus with that student due to classroom capacity and just the awareness of individuals that are coming and going on campus. But the person that shows up with that student to help with day-to-day stuff is hired by the family or the individual student.
Okay, so the differences between a 4-year and a 2-year school. So we're both from Nassau Community College. I'm actually an NCC alumni.
Me too, me too.
See, I don't want to shout out about that. The great thing about community college, it's a great school where you can get a certification or certificate program or an associate's degree. It's usually more affordable. Our tuition is just under or around $3,000 a semester, which is really reasonable when you look at a 4-year school. I'm not going to shout any names, but ones in our area are about 30,000 for one semester. And that's not even including dorming. So the affordability is a big difference. The classes are generally smaller on a community college. Our class size is between 20 to 29 students. When I was working on my bachelor's, one of my classes had 150 students. So that's a big difference with class size. 2-year is great because you get to learn how to transition into the college level where you can actually improve your GPA if high school was a little spotty here and there. Scholarship opportunities is huge on a tier-year school to help you to get to that 4 year. Career planning, we understand some people might not know what their career is when they're in high school. Sometimes they need to actually plan out and learn more about it. So that's a great thing about a community college. I like to tell people I love the liberal arts degree. I think that is a great degree because it helps you try out a bunch of different classes. You get your gen eds done and really figure out what would be a great career path for you. So when you get to that 4 year school, you can just focus on those classes that really make you hungry, that really pull you towards that degree or that career that you're really like, yes, this is my moment. A 4 year school. So again, you can have a certification or a certificate or associate's degree, but they also have bachelor's and master's degrees. If the 4 year institution says a university, that means they have doctorate degrees also at that college. Admissions for 4 year school, usually they can give you scholarships to actually apply to the school. NCC, we have a ton of scholarships available, and even there's honor societies that will help for tuition when you go to the 4 year school. There's more broader classes in a 4 year school. You get more independence because generally a 4 year school, you're dorming, so you're farther away. But also keep in mind that you're farther away. So if you're the type of student that you need mom and dad, keep in mind if they're far away, they're not going to be there to help you as quickly. Um, Research opportunities are huge in a 4 year school, especially if you know that you want to go into the science and you know you want to do more research and really develop the field. You'll have more opportunities to do that in a 4 year school.
Okay, so just again to share the information that's specific to Nassau about our Center for Students with Disabilities, our mission and the mission of all other disability offices, of course, is to serve students with documented physical, mental, visual, learning, emotional, or hearing disabilities. As I said before, students that may have received supports from K through 12, go ahead, please share documentation, please register with our office. Those that have something that's presented as they're exiting high school, mental health, or we even have some students who realize maybe I have an undiagnosed learning disability or ADHD. We encourage them to come through our office as well to receive some supports and the one-on-one counselor that you will be assigned to help you navigate the whole journey through college.
All right, the Achilles project. Someone put in the chat that they had a question about support services for a student with a genius level IQ, but also has a disability. So we actually have a program at NCC called the Achilles Project, which is for students that are twice exceptional. So that's students that have a disability, a high IQ, and then also a talent or a gift. And a lot of the times you might not know what the talent or gift is, but if you contact this email, student personnel services at ncc.edu, it would either be myself or Mary. Will respond back to you. But it really is a great program and extra support service for students that are on that genius level, but also has a disability. So they don't quite fit in either or, and then there's that gap. This is a great program where it helps fill that gap and find a great place for students that have a disability and a talent. And it's any disability. It's not just students that are on the spectrum. It really is a great program.
Another program for individuals who are on the spectrum is the Aspires program. Our colleague Frances Viskovich, her email is on the screen here, is who you would directly email and ask questions with. The difference between Aspires and Achilles is the IQ cutoff score. I will say some little facts about the Aspires program. The Aspires program does aim for the students to have a part-time schedule because their focus is really on helping the student build some social skills and make the transition to college. So they have some other requirements in the week and day-to-day schedule that doesn't allow for them to be a full-time student. But Francis Viskovich is our colleague that you would reach out to just to discuss the program requirements and how to apply for the program directly.
All right, so before you go, a few last minute tips before you leave us. Definitely, students, know your disability. I can't stress that enough. Know your disability, know how it impacts your education, know your strengths and your weaknesses. Because when you sit down and you speak with us and you say, I don't know, well, how are we supposed to know? We've only known you for a few minutes. So definitely know what your strengths are. What is your weakness? If you're not a morning person, don't register for that 6 a.m. class. You will never find me in a 6 a.m. class. You will find me pressing that snooze button. Know what you're strong at. If you're taking public transportation, you might not be in class on time, so you want to make sure you have a gap. Know what accommodations work for you. Does that reader work for you? Or is it a distraction? Do you use that extra time? Or is it you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, wasting the time? So know what accommodations you need and that actually work for you. Know how to advocate for yourself. So I already went over the FERPA. You are in charge. You have to actually advocate for yourself. If you're struggling with a class or if you're not understanding a class, the professor also can't read your mind. It's your responsibility as the student to go to the extra help. Go to the professor, be like, I need help. I don't understand. Can you clarify? Go to the tutoring center. Go to your disabilities office. I can't stress enough on how much you're in charge. But it's your responsibility to make those appointments and actually show up to the appointments. Now's a great time to start advocating for yourself. Go to your IEP meetings. Look at your documents. See what is your disability. Read how it helps you or what it hurts you. What accommodations do you use? Where can you adjust your accommodations or understand, well, why do I have a reader? Oh, that's why. Understand why those accommodations are placed and how does that actually benefit you. So that way, um, when you're at the college and you're speaking to the disabilities office, you know this information. You can't say, wait, I need to call my high school teacher, Miss Sales. You can't do that in college. So now's a great time. Start speaking in your IEP meeting. Start asking questions. Why do I get a reader? Why do I get extra time? Why is all my classes on the first level? Start asking those questions now and get practice. Practice makes perfect.
Kathy, one thing I wanted to add, and I'm sorry that we didn't stress this point a few slides ago, but when we talked about, the importance of advocating for yourself, the information that's shared college-wide about a student and their disability, it begins with the student sharing that information with our office, and our office then does not share that information with the college. It is the student's responsibility to go to class and let the professor know they get accommodations. So between the student and counselor, they'll talk about appropriate accommodations, and they create an accommodation form, which is just a letter that says that the student's registered with our office. But on that letter, it does not say to the professor, Kathy has ADHD, Kathy, it is very, it's the information is at the student's request to disclose on them to disclose, and we don't encourage them to disclose anything that they do not want to or feel that is not appropriate to disclose. The only thing that professor really needs to know is that they get such and such accommodation. So I'm sorry that back when we were talking about those processes that we didn't stress what the accommodation for the form is and the information that is shared with the professor and other faculty on campus.
Yeah, definitely. And same thing, if you know that your eyesight isn't the greatest and the teacher is assigning seats, you might want to have that conversation with the professor so that way they can assign you to the beginning of the class, the first couple of rows where you're comfortable. I have a student a few years ago that had anxiety and with panic attacks and needed to leave the room. So they told the teacher so they could sit right by the door so they could quietly leave without distracting the rest of the class. So it's so important to have those conversations with the professor. We can't disclose for you, only you can.
There's two open questions. I'm going to address the question. Can you talk a little bit more about the Aspires program? Can you just go back to that slide, Kathy, please? So the Aspires program, as I said, is a program that's run by one of our colleagues on campus. And the program does run separate from the Center for Students with Disabilities. It's a program that that students have to submit their documentation to separate from the Center for Students with Disabilities. And they will work with a handful of supports everywhere from a school, one of our psychologists on campus. They work with peer advocates. They work with faculty members. It's a program that's designed to help students be on campus, earn credit while on campus, acclimate themselves to the campus, and learn some social skills while doing so. And then another question, do you want to add anything to that? Sorry.
No, I was going to say these are two programs that are unique to NCC. There's other colleges that have stuff that's similar, but some of them charge an extra fee. I know for Aspires, it's capped to 15 to 17 students per semester because it's very intense and they want to make sure that they get as full services. So definitely, if you're thinking about applying for Achilles or for Aspires, apply as soon as possible. Start having those conversations. I know Hofstra has a program, Malloy has a program, Adelphi has a program, but I believe there's a separate fee for some of those. So that's definitely something you want to take a look at. Does the school have one of these special programs? And then what is the fee? Is there a fee? Is there a wait list? What is the application process?
Then there's a question. Can you explain what services are available for a blind student? Does the Commission for the Blind help a student on campus?
So I could actually take that because I think that's in my wheelhouse. Yes, there are services for students with visual impairments, and what the student does, they'll work with the Commission for the Blind, and then the commission will give them a grant or will let them know what the service is. So I have a student that's actually going through the Commission for the Blind right now, and what he needed was transition training, and the commission actually went. They gave him a transition coach that actually showed him how to navigate the campus, go to the buildings, where to feel for the buttons, how to navigate the room. So it's different for each student. We can also make paper into technology, digital, where it can actually read to the student, screen readers. If the student uses Braille, we actually have a Brailler that will make everything into Braille so the student can read with their fingers. So there's a lot that can happen, but again, that's part of the interactive process where we sit down with the student. So if it's a student that uses Braille, you want to make sure that the college you're going to is able to provide you with Braille. And how fast is that turnaround time? You know, is it instant? Do they have someone on campus to actually do the Braille? At Nassau, we have one person who does it. He's there part-time. He's a Braille reader. I would be the backup, and my Braille is not as great as his. It's been like 20 years since I Brailled, but we actually have someone who does that. And the commission also sets up stuff like Daisy books on Reader. There's a lot. I think I got all that.
There's just one other question I just want to address. Asking if students are in modified courses or if there's modifications to their courses. And the answer is no. At the college level, the student is in a, I'll say, quote unquote, general education class. The classes that students are in they're in classes with all other students. We have developmental education classes for students who are not college level to take a reading, English, or math, but they are not tailored for students who come from a special ed background. They are students just like any other student who may have, who may need a developmental math, English, or reading class before taking college level, but there are no modifications to course material for a student with a disability. There's accommodations, like we said, Braille if needed, enlargement, readers, but not modified assignments, exams, or anything like that. And the other question, sorry, go ahead. You want to take that one?
I was looking at the question about the programs are great. Can my son be in both programs? So Achilles and Aspires. I work closely with the Achilles Project. Um, they're two different programs, so you can't be in both. You either have a high IQ or you don't. So that's why you can't be in both. However, we do have students that are in the Aspires program, the lower IQ, but they go to the Achilles Club. So it's not part of the program. It's still the Achilles students are twice exceptional, but it's their own disability club where they do different stuff and they support each other throughout the campus and they go to events with each other.
We have a question in the chat that says, what role does a student exit summary play in this process? And is it something the student can bring to your office?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
you want to take that one?
No, go ahead.
The exit summary is just a summary. It really doesn't tell us anything. We need the IEP or the 504, the full thing. The exit summary in the college level just says that you did receive service. It doesn't really tell us what the disability is, because some exit summaries, I've seen them where they're a paragraph, and I've seen some that are a few pages. We really need the IEP or the 504, the psychological, the educational, the audiogram. We need the documentation. Did you want to add anything, Gina?
No, that was perfect.
Okay, so there was another question in the Q&A. If the person doesn't believe that they have a disability, any advice how to handle that obstacle? Right now, practice. Get them to understand what's on the IEP. Why are they getting these support services? Also, the great thing about the college, at least at Nassau, we have a couple different clubs and organizations that have students with disabilities or they're disability centered. I know my own personal experience, I am the advisor of 4 different clubs. One of them is the anime club, and most of the students in anime, and we have 300 students now in this club, 200 of them are registered in the disabilities office, and they're very open about their struggles with their disabilities, their strength, and it really is a great community. So definitely get used to like talking about the disability. At the end of the day, if the student is still denying that they have a disability and is refusing to use services, the college has to listen to the student. If the student doesn't want to use us, we can't chase them down the hallway and say, hey, you need us. We can't do that. So now's the great time to start getting them used to and understanding, why are you going to special education? Why do you have an IEP? Why are you getting extra time? Why are you getting counseling? Whatever the student is getting, why? How is that helping you? Because at the college level, they have to advocate for themselves to get those accommodations. Okay, so there's a question in the chat. Are you flexible with the IQ and the Aspires program? Do you want me to do that one, or do you want to?
Well, I would say we can't really speak to that. It's up to the advisor of the program. So those specifics, so please reach out to them, to Fran Viskovich.
And I think we have time for one short question. We got 1 or 2 short questions here. So with Aspire and Achilles, how many applicants do you get per year for those programs? You may not know exactly.
So I know for Achilles, because I work closely with Achilles, it really depends on the high school. We're trying to go around to more high schools and explain about the Achilles program. So it ranges. One year we had 10 people apply, and then another year we had 2. It also then we look at the applicant and see, do they qualify? Do they have the high IQ? Do they have a disability? And do they have a talent and a gift? And does the student actually want to participate in the program? Um, that's also huge. We've had students that met all the criteria, and then when they came in to speak with us, they're like, no, I don't want to do this. Again, the student's in charge. Um, so it depends on how many people to apply. Aspires, I'm not sure. You would have to email Fran Viskovich. I know she's capped at between 15 students, I think, per semester. So it depends on how many students she has, how many are graduating, and how many spots are open.
And our final question, can a student take a course or two over the summer to get their feet wet? And if so, when do they apply for summer?
Oh, so summer session, just to clarify, summer session, we have from the end of May to August, we do run summer sessions. We have one that runs in May to June, or pretty much the whole month of June. July is another one, and then August. They are very condensed. They are fast moving. They would be meeting every day. So for some students, maybe it's a good chance for them to come to campus and try a class. For others, depending upon the course content and how fast it will move, it's not the best time for them to be exposed to the campus. So if a student is looking to do that, though, they would apply to the college as they would for fall, spring. They just select that your entry date would be for summer. And course offerings for summer will be available in mid-March.
We also
Thank you so.
have a course called Freshman Seminar, NCC 101, which is a great class because it helps the student really get their feet wet and understand college life and responsibilities and the different areas of college. And I know several colleges also have something similar where it's a freshman seminar.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the entire presentation and all this information. We really appreciate it, Ms. Sales and Ms. Lewis. It was a pleasure, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.